could call Professor Friedman Stu. So I'm really excited about that. It's amazing.
God. Really? You're excited about that, Kelly?
Yes, yes. Oh, it's such a big deal. It's such a big deal that you're here. And also it's so nice. It's so nice. I mean, everyone, thank you. So we've done this 142 times.
Wow.
And it is 18 years ago today that my dad died. And so like, I really miss him. And sometimes people say to me, oh my God, you must miss him. But it is a long time since he's died. And I always say, I miss him every day. And those of you who I'm really closest to know, like I really actually do miss him every day. And it's not, it's just means so much that so many people come, and he's had this amazing impact even after he's gone, and it always feels like he's here. And Stu, I have to tell you, for what it's worth, like Amy especially knows this, some of my other friends are, he would be about this one. This is great. Like, this is so what you need. This is so what you need. So this is kind of what all of us need. But this is going to be really cool. And I love it that there's so many people here. Like a lot of people, most people are parents themselves, or maybe you'll be parents in the future. Or like your friends that are parents, or maybe it makes you think differently about your parents, or maybe your parents are also not here. And we always have like a kind of little half moment just to think of people who are not with us, who we want to reflect on. I feel like that's something that that my dad's memory also has brought us. So maybe we'll do that now. Thank you, guys. So I was thinking, you know, there's so many different kinds of days that everybody is having right now, and nothing obviously is really normal. I know that all of us feel different degrees of fortunate in so many different ways. And the way that kids, maybe for those of us who have kids, can make us feel or not feel has been disorienting, let's say. So, you know, I would say like having these days where everything is crazy, but you're doing pretty well, you know, and then you feel like your best self, and then you can go, and then you can move on to being a parent again. Maybe you feel all day long like you're a parent and like you're working or not. But, you know, I think there's a bunch of things about family that can feel overwhelming. So it's going to be so interesting, you guys, to hear like a leadership scholar talk about this. And he's done all this study and done all this work about this. So, you know, I think that I think this is going to be fascinating, Stu, to get to hear about all of your work as an organizational psychologist at Wharton, and you have this amazing series about total leadership, and then you decided to pull in, and we're excited to hear about how you decided to work on parenting, and that is with Alyssa Westring, Parents Who Lead, this book in particular. So, and everyone, please buy this book. Please buy this book again, even if you have bought it once, please buy it and give it to people. I mean, it's amazing. Like Stu, you could write about a million different pieces of leadership. And the fact that I just feel so moved and touched that you were like, we're going to go here. And that the need is, you know, that the need is really, really big. So thank you for doing that. As I understand it, you're sort of fascinated about finding like harmony between business, life, and leadership. And I don't know how this is possible because you look so young, but have you really been on the faculty of Wharton since 1984?
Yes, I have.
That's crazy. So how fascinating and interesting, and even
You're embarrassing me, Kelly.
Even to hear this, and like how your views on parenthood have changed, like even when you started writing Total Leadership, you know, what what might you have thought if someone had said that you would have this book in 2020 when this is happening, you know? So anyway, a lot of you know, especially you have been students of business, that Stu is really famous. So he basically is really known for a bunch of work that he partnered on Ford Motor Company with to kind of create this total leadership program. This has been insanely popular at Wharton for decades. He's gotten so many different awards. I couldn't even begin to go to all of them. One of them I thought was kind of cool. It's called Thinkers 50 Distinguished Achievement Award in Talent. Then there was another one that I thought was fascinating, that Working Mothers gave you, that named you as one of the 25 most influential men for having made things better for working parents. And I wonder how you felt about that when you got that. I mean, it's really, really fascinating, I think, to kind of think about who Stu has come in touch with as he's written this, as he's done his research. All of the background is he got this fancy PhD in organizational psychology from University of Michigan. And, you know, he's this
Very fancy.
Renaissance approach to his life. I mean, you're this public policy leader, you're this highly regarded speaker, you're this workshop leader, you know, advisor, coach, advocate. And we want to hear like how advocating for parents has been different than advocating for these like kind of traditional leaders. Again, this is our 142nd time that people have gathered together. Thank you guys for also just kind of not skipping a beat and making this series virtual. And we're, you know, the fact that we get to hear from you, Stu, about like what actions can we take for more harmony in our lives that is not only includes our families, but is kind of about the families is really, really amazing. So, you know, the series is really close to my heart. And again, I'm thinking about how my parents would think of like the fact that you're investing this time with us. I think they would just be so awed. CPS Lectures is now officially a part of the diaTribe Foundation. And I'm curious, I don't know how many people have never come or are first timers here, but maybe if you put it in chat, that's really cool. Or maybe you can vote, I don't know, or maybe you can raise your hand. I'm always really moved. I know we don't have everybody's photo on, and that's totally fine. But it's so sweet. I see so many friends here. But if you can say, if you've never been here, that might be interesting for us to as well. I think that, you know, again, the idea that we're also coming together and we're being in community to learn more about this is just so meaningful. Our board at the diaTribe Foundation is 7 years old now, and 7 years ago they said, diaTribe's mission is all about helping people with diabetes and prediabetes and advocating for action. So the fact that our board said, yes, this is a really great idea. You already have this series. We should make it a program of the diaTribe Foundation because this is really all about being in a community together and increasing our emotional well-being. That's amazing. And so thank you so much to our board for saying that. Now at diaTribe, many of you have helped diaTribe grow. So thank you. We're now at 250,000 weekly subscribers to our news service there. And we, you know, are all about making, you know, trying to educate people and trying to help make people smart about how they can be healthier. I'm so excited because for the last couple months, you've heard me talk about our goal for the year. And so we're over our goal for the year, our financial goal. So thank you so much. We're just under raising 3.5 million for the year. And that's a couple $100,000 over our goal. Thank you so much for diaTribe, the whole team there. And we're still about 111 people from our grassroots goal. And so we would love if you are open to shooting over a $5 gift to diaTribe. A gift of any size is fine. No gift is too large. But even if you could encourage anyone that you know with diabetes or anyone who is really even interested in just healthier living and eating, because we have the most amazing articles about food, and those have done so well as people have really slowed down, you know, during the pandemic. But you know, we started out with $80,000 our first year. We were at 6,000 subscribers. And so the fact that we have been able to grow, I'm so grateful to. Katie Brower is our manager of the series extraordinaire. I know that a lot of you know her. If you can, please send out like a special thank you to her, because what she has done on turning on a dime and making this series work so well this year in particular is just extraordinary. So I know that we're excited to get going. Many of you know that we ask one question in each of our discussions. The question tonight I did put at the top: what do you think is the most important attribute shared by successful leaders and parents today? It is 9:45, and so even though I had this dream of that we were gonna say what we think they are out loud, maybe we'll just take 2 minutes, Stu. Is that okay? If people can say their name if they want to, this is optional, but any ideas that you have about important attributes shared by successful leaders and parents today, this is just kind of like something to make us all feel closer and something to show Stu about who's in the room. But again, thank you so much. And to my amazing friend, Barbara Truppen, has been in just such a valuable advisor to me for, gosh, so many years now. And Barbara told me about Stu, and she told me how to try to get him to say yes. And I know she cannot believe it that he's doing this for diaTribe out of the goodness of his heart. And so thank you, Barbara, for making this happen. And thank you all for being here. Yay, I see so many people. I don't want to call on people out loud, but like Will Fleissig, do you have an answer to this question? Or Courtney, do you have an answer to this question? Or Becky Bausman, or Francis, or Meryl?
There's people starting to respond in the chat, which is great. It would be wonderful to hear from everyone there just really quickly. And then maybe, you know, some others might want to speak, but
yeah.
Kelly, you name checked me, so I'm willing to speak up.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Becky Bosman. Do you mean things that leaders share with parents, or do you just mean that anyone anywhere who's a good either or has in common with all the other people in this group?
Yeah, I was thinking what qualities, like if you think of the best parents who are also great leaders, what is it in common? You know, what would you put?
Yeah. I think it is that their mission is the success of the other, that their job and their purpose is in helping the people around them be their fullest selves.
That's so beautiful.
This is Courtney. I'll echo, definitely believe that, you know, servant leadership and servant parenting are very important. But I think self-awareness is really one of the most important things. The more we can know about ourselves as leaders and as parents, the better we can serve those that we are working with and steward our children. So that would be my answer too.
And you're right, Stu. There's so many cool things. There's so many cool things that are in the that are coming in the chat. I see one that was a private message to me. I don't know if this was meant as private or not, but it says how to breathe and respond instead of reacting. And when you figure that out, please text me because I'd like to have a little bit more of that. Chakia, empathetic, caring, articulate. I love that. And she is going to be talking about her new book, which I'm going to put in chat in 2021. So that's so cool. Oh my gosh, Jane, Louise, Meredith. I'm calling on also people that I don't know yet. Sue Patel, I'm so happy to see everybody. I know, Stu, like we have to turn it over to you now. I agree with you though. Please keep putting these in chat. And you guys, Stu is so cool. So he's gonna talk for a little bit, and he's gonna really let us decide what we want to ask him and the flow of the conversation. So you can send questions to Katie, who is at diaTribe Foundation is her tag, but she's up in the, I think everyone's left, upper left. And I'll hand it over to you, Stu, but thank you so much for coming and for making today so much more okay for me, along with everybody else who's here.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks, Katie, for organizing us. Thanks, Barbara, for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you all for showing up. Let's see now. I like to read the chat, so we'll keep using that. And I also like to see people in Zoom land. So if it's possible, if you're not currently video available and you can be, that's preferable, not just for me, of course, but for us, but up to you, totally. So you asked me a lot of different things, Kelly. Where do I begin? Well, first of all, I lost my father this year. So your opening, recalling yours and his inspiration to you, that moved me because I think about him every day. And I think he'd be glad that I'm here as well. So thanks for that invocation. Yes, I've been teaching at Wharton since 1984. Amazing. I know, it's crazy. In fact, now I'm emeritus, right? So just last year, I only teach now in the executive MBA program, both in Philly as well as in California. Although, of course, now it's all remote. And I began, my PhD was at the University of Michigan, although I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School. I went to the State University of New York at Binghamton, and University of Michigan, also state school. So not that fancy, but emeritus, that is fancy. Actually, it's just retired, but it's not really. Like my kids say to me, Dad, I thought you were retired. And I said, yeah, I know. I'm just tired, actually, not retired. But anyway, so I was originally going to be pursuing clinical psychology, but I ended up moving to organizational psychology and was studying how people develop as leaders and how companies develop leadership capacity. That's what I did my dissertation research on, how large companies increase the flow of talent, leadership talent in their organizations. And that's what I spent a good part of the 80s focusing on, helping companies develop leadership capacity, as that idea was really taking hold in the business world in a way that is now, understood as, well, of course you have to develop leadership in your company. But back in the 80s, that was not a widely understood or shared ideal. It's very different now. But I was also always interested in the relationship between work and the rest of life, and had studied that as kind of a minor theme in graduate school. And then my first child was born, and that was in 1987. And that was after we'd had 2 miscarriages. So both my wife and I, she was also a PhD student in clinical psychology at the University of Michigan. In fact, I went there to follow her. We met at a graduate school interview, which was for the finalists at one of these clinical psychology programs, because I was applying to both clinical and organizational programs. And we were among a group of about 8 or 9 finalists in this program, where they had, the bunch of us together for like 6 hours doing these touchy-feely exercises while the faculty were observing us. That's where I met her. And neither of us got into that program. I was entirely focused on her throughout the entire, 6 hours that we were together. Anyway, I'm digressing here. But Kelly did say,
So
give
we're loving
us some inside stuff like that you usually don't talk about. So, okay, that's what I'm doing. I hope this is working, Kelly. I'm almost done with this story because it relates to what am I doing here and how might this be helpful to you, which is, of course, what you are here for. So she got into the University of Michigan's program, which was a great program for her. And I got a full ride at the University of Chicago in social and organizational psychology. But then we got together. She came with me to Chicago for the summer. And we ended up, I proposed to her, within a matter of weeks. She said, yes, but I'm not staying here in Chicago. So I called up the University of Michigan and said, hey, can I come there? And they said, yeah, okay. And that's how I got to Michigan. So some years later, we moved here to Philadelphia after I got this position at Wharton, and we started trying to have kids. And then Gabriel was born in October 1987. He now has 2 children and another one on the way. Would you like to see pictures? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, we would. There's only one.
No. We're not going that far. But his arrival was not only momentous because we've had these 2 miscarriages, which made us, considerably anxious about, the idea, the possibility, and how fragile it all was. But when I met him for the first time, I was profoundly moved, as many people are when they first meet their children, and could not get out of my mind the question, what am I now going to do to make the world a safe one for him to grow up in? Which is something that I hadn't really given much thought to prior to that. Being the, naive and rather, distracted and sort of stupid person that I was/am. And, I asked everyone, I just couldn't stop thinking about this. So when I returned to my Wharton classroom in October 1987, which none of you remember, but it was just after Black Monday. Things were crazy. And the students had prepared a case on motivation and reward systems, something like that. I said, there's something else I have to talk to you about. I just pushed that aside and I started ranting, completely unprepared, but had to talk about this thing that was on my mind. And the question that I posed to them was, what are you going to do as future business leaders to help to develop and nurture the next generation, not of talent, but just the next generation, full stop. And I started talking about why I thought this was important to them. And the reaction in the room was really quite, it was memorable. I remember it quite well because, the number of the people, men and women, were annoyed that I had not, devoted the class to the thing that they had prepared. But much more importantly, they were saying things like, hey, well, first of all, nobody cares about your family, professor. Why are you talking about children? That's not a business issue. How is this relevant? We're in business school. What are you talking about? Huh? None of your business. The other part of the room, men and women, were leaning forward and like, yeah, I'm so glad somebody's finally talking about this here. Say more. And so when I posed this question, what are you going to do to cultivate the next generation of people and keep them safe and to create a world in which they can thrive? One of the students turned around and said to me, well, you're the professor, you tell us. And of course, I was just asking the question, which I had in my head as the thing that I wanted to bring to them. And I've made a whole career of doing that, asking people, annoying questions that provoke them to see things a little bit differently. So I didn't have an answer. I was just asking. But of course, in the asking, you start to discover things, and you also discover new possibilities for what you can do to try to find answers. And I realized, I should pursue this. And so I did. I kind of pivoted in my career. I maintained my research and practice and teaching on leadership growth. And indeed, I was the founding director of the leadership program at the Wharton School in 1991. And at the same time, I founded the Wharton Work-Life Integration Project, which was devoted to finding practical knowledge about how people can integrate the different parts of their lives in a way that works for all of them. And so that's what I started to do. And throughout the 90s, I was doing both of those things. And being a man at the Wharton School, talking about families and children in the late 80s and early 90s made me very weird, weirder than I already am. And I stood out. Virtually everyone in the field at that time, except for a couple of other people, were women. So this is all of the history and none of the the good stuff I want to share with you. So I really need to wait. What are you saying, Kelly? You're speaking to me, telling me to stop, cut to the chase.
We're just hanging on every word.
Oh no. Okay. Well, good. That you're speaking for yourself, though. I don't know if that's true for everyone.
I'm not. Everyone is very rapt.
Anyway.
True.
Anyway, you continue to make me blush here, Kelly. Stop it. This really took off. It got a lot of attention. There's articles in the Wall Street Journal, Business Week, and because again, I was a distinctive messenger for these ideas, and we went into the field and found people who were good at this at different levels in different industries. In addition to doing a number of large-scale survey research efforts, which is what I had mainly been trained in how to do. And we found people who were good, as identified by others in their organizations. I brought together a series of roundtables over a number of years that included people in the business world, the emerging industry, consulting industry, and the whole work life and wellness space, people from government, and of course other academics who were starting to focus on this issue. And we found three basic principles that people who do this well seem to be able to do. They figured out how to do it. And that is what I later referred to as being real, being whole, being innovative. Clarifying what's most important to you, being real, being able to act with authenticity by expressing, knowing what matters most, your values and your vision. Being whole, recognizing and respecting the fact that you live in multiple roles in the different parts of your life, and to respect those different parts and the people and groups in them, and look for ways to connect with them and to understand what they need from you and to be able to respond to that, and to be innovative, to be continually experimenting with how you get things done. Well, I'm pursuing those ideas, writing books and articles. My 1998 Harvard Business Review article was called Work and Life, the End of the Zero-Sum Game, which was one of the first big pieces in this field. And that got a lot of attention. And by the end of the 90s, we had figured out how to create a leadership program that worked in the core of the MBA leadership program at Wharton. So the late 90s, the head of the CEO of Ford Motor Company hired me as part of his effort. There were about 30 of us who he drew from many different industries and parts of the world to infuse new blood in the company, 100-year-old company, to try to change it, to try to drive cultural change. And my job was to lead the effort on our education system. I was the head of leadership development for the company globally. And in my interview with the CEO, I said to him, look, I'm going to take this up from the point of view of the whole person. And he said, great, I love it, do it. And he handed me a big pot of money, and off we went. So it was there that I was able to bring together some incredible people and other resources to create something new, which was an approach to leadership development that was about integrating the whole person. And we called it total leadership. The purpose of which is to improve performance in all the different parts of life by finding mutual value among them. Because what we found was that these principles, being real, being whole, being innovative, are not only essential and learnable to creating harmony, some sense of integration or harmony, peace among the different parts of life. They're also essential for growing your leadership capacity. So we created a programmatic effort that had people identifying their values and vision and speaking to their life histories and how those drove the better tomorrow that they're trying to create. And a number of other tools that enabled participants to articulate their values, to have the courage to explore what really mattered, and to do this in a peer-to-peer coaching environment where they were learning from each other and holding each other accountable for pursuing these ideas. So articulating your values, your vision, what's most important in the different parts of your life. And I'm going to share a couple of those tools with you in just a minute. We had people write about and speak publicly about their vision. Describe a day in your life 15 years from now. What does that look like? What are you doing, with whom, and why? What's the impact that you're trying to have? What's the legacy you're creating? And to refine that. Helping people to identify what it meant for them to be real, to be whole. We brought that to life in the following way: to share your understanding of who are the most important people in your life. So we asked people to identify them, to write about them. Who matters most to you at work, at home, in the community? Who are the most important, 4 or 5 most important individuals or groups? Why are they important to you? How do they fit with your values and your vision of the world you're trying to create? What do those people expect of you? What do you expect of them? What do you need from them? What do they need from you? So we ask people to, again, write about this. Privacy protected, only share what you want to share, but stretch as far as you can. Look at that set of people, 12, 15 or so people across the different parts of your life. And what do you see when you look at what you think they expect of you and what you expect of them? How does that all fit with who you see yourself as representing in the world, your purpose, your values, your vision? Where is there conflict? Where is there compatibility among those? And what opportunities, as you start to do this kind of exploration, you of course start to think about what's not working, what doesn't fit, and what you can try to do to make change happen. The second part of that middle piece, the heart of it, the whole element, is to then prepare for and undertake dialogues with those people to get the real story as to what they think about your mutual expectations and how well you're doing in meeting them. Which of course is something that we all do in various ways, but there are some methods, there's science here as to how to do this in a way that builds trust, gets past the bullshit, and enables people to tell you the truth, which of course is essential for you as a leader, for people to tell you what they need to tell you and for you to hear that. And it's also, of course, essential for you to be able to do that in order to find ways to create harmony among the different parts of your life. You have to know what your people really need and what you need from them, and to be able to talk about that, negotiate that continually. So the preparation for these dialogues and then the undertaking of them, it's very powerful to do this in a way that is in a concentrated period of time. And imagine in the period of about a month, speaking to the most important people in your life about what you can do to strengthen your relationship with them. You learn a ton. And one of the things that is a well-established pattern now, I've been doing this for 20 years and coached all kinds of people all over the world. The book that I eventually wrote that describes this program, originally published in 2008, it's in a bunch of different languages. And now my small company, we bring this material to people everywhere. We're doing one for kids, a version for teens. That's in the works now. And I'll tell you how I got this is a whole hour on why I wrote the book that I'm not going to have time to talk about. No, I actually am talking about it because these ideas and principles are now brought to bear on the particular challenge of leading as a parent. You undertake these dialogues and discover that what other people expect of you is actually a little bit different from what you thought. That happens almost all the time, especially when you approach the conversation in something like this way. You're one of the most important people to me. I want to talk with you about how we can strengthen our relationship and grow together, in the days to come. Would you be willing to spend some time doing that? And in a way that's, less awkward and more natural for you, you would do that with a bunch of different people at work, at home, and in the community. And of course, most people are honored, they're flattered, they feel good, and they're willing to do it. And those that don't want to do it, well, then maybe you should rethink whether they're really important to you or accept the fact that you're not important to them, painful as that is. So you get a better sense of reality, which is, of course, what leaders must do. And of course, what we must do to better integrate the different parts of our lives for mutual gain, deal with reality. It's what our current president is showing us how not to do. In so many ways, such a great example of all the things you do wrong when you want to really, really, really mess things up as a leader. So dealing with reality, identifying it, putting words to it, helping people see it, accept it, so that you can together take steps together to a better tomorrow. That's what we do as leaders. We mobilize people towards valued goals. We bring people together to go with us to a better tomorrow for them, for us. So you discover in these dialogues that other people expect a little less from you than you thought. So if I were to say to you, Amy, you're the first face that I say right in the center of the screen, Amy, here are the 4 things that I think are most important to you. And I have done some writing about this, and I'd have shared it with the 2 other peers that are going through this process with me. And I've helped them think through their values, their vision, their understanding of what they think their stakeholders, as we call them, expect of them, and vice versa. And so I would have prepared and come to the conversation and said, okay, Amy, here are the 4 things that I think are most important to you. Do I have it right? And you would say something along the lines of, hey, this is great. I'm so glad we're doing this. Thanks for taking the time to think about this, Stu, and that you actually have given some consideration to what it is that you think I need from you. That's awesome. Trust built, grown, for sure, in almost every case when you simply just do that. But the much more fun and enlightening part of it is, do I have it right? Here's what I think. Do I have it right? And that humility, that sense of openness and curiosity invites people to tell you what you don't have right. And that's what you're there to do, right? Is to discover what others see that you don't. Essential quality of effective leadership, helping people to tell you the truth that you don't know. So what Amy's likely to say to me is something like, yeah, those first 2 things, super important. If you hadn't mentioned those, I think, there was something really wrong here. But the 3rd and 4th things that you're mentioning, not so important. And I'm like, what? Really? I spent so much time worrying about those 3rd and 4th things. Tell me more. Why are they not important to you? Here's what I thought they were. And so we talk about that, and I discover how you're thinking about those third and fourth things that I'm spending a lot of time on. And because Amy can see that I'm open, curious, want to know how she's thinking, I'm non-defensive, I'm not coming into the conversation, trying to tell her what to do. She sees, hey, maybe this is an opportunity for me to tell Sue about that thing that he doesn't know about, that he should really know about. And so she says, there's this other thing that's important to me that I want to tell you about. All right, let's hear it. And so I learned this other thing. Anyway, this is a typical pattern in these conversations. And not surprisingly, what happens when you go into the conversation with these four things floating around your head? Now, this is just with me and Amy. That's just one person, but the pattern is often this way. And I leave the conversation, these two less important to me now. Okay, now I get Amy better. And I also learned this other thing. So what's the upshot there? You can write in the chat. What's the upshot of that conversation with me and Amy? I'm looking at the screen, looking for somebody to respond. Yeah, exactly, Anjali. A better understanding, more trust, indeed. Two fewer things to stress over. Barbara, you were in this class, so you know the answer. Less pressure. Less pressure. And I'm smarter. I know exactly, Joe. I know what to spend my time on. This is not that complicated, but very few people do it. Because in the hustle and bustle and everyday life with demands coming screaming at you in every direction, it's hard to do this. So yeah, new possibilities. Exactly. And so you start to see the world in a different way when you are intentional, mindful, and purposeful in connecting with your people. So this then leads to ideas for experiments, and that's what we help people design and deliver in the laboratory of their real lives. Ideas for innovation that pursue what we call 4-way wins, and that is demonstrably improved performance at work, at home, in the community, and for yourself personally. And so this is what we've been doing for a long time. And Barbara was in this class way back in the day. And in the years since, we've been doing a lot of research.
Call me out on that.
Well,
because it was the early 90s. You didn't have to mention that.
Well, so in the early 90s, so that was before the total leadership stuff was happening, right?
I was year 2 of the program. Year 2 of total leadership at Wharton.
Wow. Okay. So
I was 14, by the way, just saying.
What we have found is that when people undertake these activities that I've just described over a period of a few months, they tend to shift their attention away from work into the other parts of their lives, and yet their satisfaction and performance improves, even in their work life. It's like their ability to meet and exceed the expectations of people at work increases, despite the fact that they're spending less of their time and attention at work. Why? Assuming those data are valid and they're written up in the Total Leadership book, and I can send you more studies if you're interested. What do you think? Please go to the chat again. Why would that result hold? Yeah, well, what you find and what we teach in helping people to establish ideas for experiments, and there are 9 different kinds that we describe in the Total Leadership Project, based on research that we've done about, well, what do people do when you ask them to change something that's going to make a difference, a positive difference at work, at home, in the community, and for yourself personally? And that's part of the training, is to imagine new possibilities, as Will said, that are about having a positive impact in all the different parts, not just 1, not just 2, not just 3, but all 4. Everybody can do this. And it doesn't mean all 4 all at once. A lot of the experiments have to do with taking care of yourself so that you can perform better in the other parts of your life, or being able to focus and concentrate your time and attention on one thing or one person so that you're better able and less distracted to attend to the other things that matter, or shifting where and when you get things done, or delegating and developing differently, or sharing more of yourself, including that leadership vision that you develop with others so that they understand better who you are, where you're coming from, where you want to go. You show up with more energy and focus, you're less distracted, and you're working on the things that matter. So I could share with you the little exercise that we do on this, but it's that helps people to take the four-way view. But if we have time, we'll get there. Let me just spend another 2 minutes to then complete my introduction, now that we're almost done, with telling you how I got to write a book about parents. So the Total Leadership program is burgeoning. It's helping people to find better performance and a bit more harmony in the different parts of their lives. And still, there's quite a lot of skepticism about it. So my second Harvard Business book was a follow-up to the Total Leadership book. It's called Leading the Life You Want, in which I profile 6 remarkable leaders, 3 men, 3 women in different industries, including entertainment as well as public service, to show how they developed their skills in bringing to bear in their lives the principles of being real, being whole, being innovative, and how they did so in a way that enabled their career success, that their professional and career success was not because they were forsaking the other parts of their lives, their personal lives, physical, mental, spiritual health, their community lives, their family lives, the typical, the mythology that surrounds American business success. You have to forsake everything in order to be successful in your work life. What these people and so many others demonstrate is that you achieve greater success when you're able to draw on the resources and support and inspiration that comes from connections in all the different parts, and to intelligently, intentionally try to find harmony among them. It's more possible than most people think. It's impossible to find balance. As I've long been saying, balance is bullshit. I've said that since the early 90s. And we called the project the Work-Life Integration Project intentionally, because it's about harmony, it's about integration. I prefer the metaphor of the jazz quartet, where you've got the 4 different pieces, but they're improvising on a theme, trying to make a beautiful sound over the course of time. And sometimes, a couple of the pieces are at rest, and then the others are playing. Sometimes you just hear the trumpet, the others are just listening. But throughout all the pieces, if you ever seen a great jazz quartet, they're doing their own thing, each one of them, but they are also very attentive to what each of the other members are doing, and they're moving with them. It's a better way to think about the relationship between work and life, I have found, much more realistic. But through this process, a number of the clients and students were saying to me, you got to write this. My wife is reading this book with me, or my husband, or my partner, and you got to write a book for us. I said, well, just have her buy another copy and we'll be cool. You just do it in parallel. So no, there's something about how this works for us as a unit that you ought to be writing about. And my kids are grateful that I'm doing this. And so I'd hear a lot about parents and couples, but books are hard to write. And I was thinking, okay, I'll just But then the senior editor, the acquisitions editor at the Harvard Business Press said, it's 3 years ago, we need a book from you on parents, working parents, because that's now the topic, and you're the guy that we want to do it. So you have to write this book. I'm like, oh man, I'm 65. I'm 68 now. This is 3 years ago. No, too much. And you're definitely not going to pay me enough. So no. So they, I said, if I can have my co-author, who's a generation after me, but has been a research colleague and friend for a long time, if she can do this with me, then okay. So they agreed. And so Alyssa Westring joined me. And what we did in Parents Who Lead was to take these same basic ideas, but we did a lot of research. We created a lab where we redesigned, we reimagined these exercises for partners in parenting. And those take many different forms, of course. And that's what we offer in the Parents Who Lead book, and that's how I got to write it. So now I didn't get to tell you very much about what's in it, except that these same principles, like we have each partner, and even if, with single parents, like find someone else who's in this game with you, and everybody's able to find somebody, at least in our set of people who we were working with. What's your vision? Describe a day in your life 15 years from now, your ideal day. What do you do in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and with whom and why, and what's the impact you're having? Have your partner do that. Compare notes. And of course, we have a lot of guidance here on how important it is to be compassionate, collaborative, and committed to collaboration in these coaching conversations and these dialogues that partners are having. Compare notes, and now write a collective vision. And that is an incredibly powerful thing for people to do. And most people don't. So it starts with that, a description of your values. Like, what are the 4 or 5 values that are most important to you? Is it learning, adventure? Is it romance, material gain, social justice, education, whatever it is? And what about theirs? And again, coming together as a leadership team. What we found is that people get the idea of parenting as a leadership challenge. They don't want to be the micromanaging, jerks that they have seen, but they do want to inspire. They do want to imagine a better tomorrow and give a sense of hope to those who look up to them. And they want to find a way to develop a path forward together. So it starts with being real. What do we stand for? What's the reality as we see it in terms of what we care most about? Why do we care about the things that we care about? And then talking to your kids. So there's a chapter on talking to kids. It starts with, why did you become a parent? And we, not being developmental psychologists, gleaned from the literature the best, that we could understand about what children need, and then ask you to define, all right, what do each of your kids need? And now talk to them, have that stakeholder dialogue with them, which is of course different if they're 4 than when they're 14 or 24 or 34. And so we have some guidance about that, and people discover they see their kids in a fresh light, many of them. And then we also ask them to have those conversations with other important people in their lives, including at work, but also in their community. And through these conversations, all kinds of new possibilities emerge, and people do experiments, but as a family. So what can we do together that's going to help both of us make things better for us, for our family, for our kids, but also for our careers and our communities? And there's some amazing experiments that people have done and that are described in the book. It's 26 past the hour. I've talked the entire time after Kelly talked the entire time, and you have had no chance to talk. So I think I should stop and just leave a few minutes, and I'll stick around if you want to talk to you more about what we discovered, the surprises that were in this for me and the participants. But I'll pause here and open the floor for whatever else you want to hear about.
Stu, would it be all right if I asked a question?
Why would that not be okay, Becky?
I don't know, because I
Please,
probably
fire away.
talk too much too. Dinner, parents who work. What has your research shown in terms of insights about how to align interests and the four-way win when that harmony is intractable. And I'll give you a couple of examples.
Give
Hey
me one.
team, we've had to lay some people off, and so we're really going to need all hands on deck this weekend. And I know that that means that your partners at home are going to have to step up and do more because you won't be home to help with childcare, and that's hard for everybody, but it's really in the best interest of the firm, and we've got to do it to hit the numbers.
Mhm.
Right? Or
Sure. Of
yeah,
course.
I'll stop there.
No, I mean, you know, there's always sacrifice that's necessary, of course, and you know, things are never as you wish them to be. You know, people disappoint us, circumstances change, the tragedy befalls us, you know, unexpected events occur. Look what's happening in our world right now. I mean, there's so much uncertainty, so much fear, so much anxiety. And, you know, most people are trying to do the best they can with what they've got. So what do you do? Well, it's still possible to treat people with dignity. If you're asking, how do you deal with unexpected demands? What we find is that those, but just looking at families now and parents who lead, those people who have had and are continuing to have ongoing discussions about who are we? What do we stand for? Why do we care about the things that we care about? How can we be helpful to each other? So among the experiments that people do is just practicing shared values. They talk as an experiment. Let's develop a set of values that we stand for, and let's talk about those, and let's understand what they mean in terms of our everyday lives and how we live, and how we can support each other when shit happens. You know, when things come up. So when you build that sort of foundation of you know, a community in your family of, you know, people who are trying to be helpful to each other and that are pursuing an idea together, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier when you have that sort of trust that comes from that, for people to flex and to be responsive in the ways that you need them to be. It's not without pain or, you know, hardship, but it's easier. Does that answer your question, Becky, or you want to say more about that?
No, it does. It really resonates. It's what I need to read it back to you is that when you've established that bond of trust and mutual and shared values and interests, then you're able to form the foundation for borrowing on people's balance, you know,
Yeah.
when you need to, right? And earlier today, I heard a different lecture that was explaining that people will trust you when you're benevolent. They'll let go if you miss on ability, or if you miss on even if you miss on integrity, as long as you're benevolent. And I'm hearing a lot of ties to that here. Shane Snow is the guy I'm talking about.
It's hard to do, but the more you can, you know, speak to your understanding of the difficulties that people are having, you know, the easier it is. And of course, this, you know, building of trust, it's the most essential quality of leadership, you know, relationships. And it's important in all of our relationships, especially in our families. So what we've tried to do here is to take what we've been learning from the science of leadership and apply it to the leadership challenges that parents face. And it turns out there's a lot that's really relevant, is in a way that I hope is sparking some new ideas for you. We're at 7:30. I'm willing to keep going here for those who want to stick around or ask further questions or tell me what I've got wrong and what's missing here, anything that you want to address, or there's more I could tell you about what's in the book and in the project. I'm open. Kelly, I'll leave it to you.
Oh my gosh, this is so incredible. I bet you that people have questions, and we don't always, you know, it's so interesting. We're not always in this kind of trust. So sometimes we just say, like, put your questions in chat or whatever, but if people want to speak up with questions, I know other people are probably like me and thinking, oh, not everybody knows you had a PowerPoint. But I'm also dying to know what's in that. And also just, this is COVID, and, you know, like, what are you thinking and finding? But people should speak up or put their questions.
Here's the cover page.
No.
And I'd be happy to share the deck with you. It's sort of like a Cliff Notes version of the book. But yeah. So I'm looking at the chat.
Yes, me too. Me too. Yeah,
Okay,
people would love, people would love to see it.
I'll share the deck with you, no problem.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And other people, I'm sure, have questions. And it's always like a little awkward because people don't know if they just speak up or not. People can, or if you have questions and you want Katie to say it, that's also fine. And you can give them to her.
It's filled with examples, illustrations of the exercises that I tried to outline as they played out in the original Total Leadership Project. But it's the illustrations and the little cases are with people like you who were in our lab, and we describe, for example, how they came up with a shared vision, or how they talk to their kids, how they talk to their colleagues at work, their bosses, their friends, extended family. And then I think the part that most people find most interesting is the experiments that they did in finding quality time, in letting go of expectations that they used to have that are no longer relevant or helpful, in building health together, in strengthening networks that helped all members feel more connected. So there's all kinds of illustrations there, and I think the big idea is to be thinking about creating value not just in one part of your life, but to really be thinking about the impact that what you're doing in this part of your life, in your work life, how it does affect the other parts. And once you start to look for that and to train your mind to be attending to those interconnections, you get a lot smarter about where you focus your attention, which is perhaps your most precious asset as a leader. So the surprising findings, let me go right to the end. This is what people in our workshops found surprising, that they had more love and support in their lives than they had thought going in, that they were able to realize closer and deeper connections to the people who matter to them, particularly their kids, but others as well. They developed more realistic expectations of themselves and of the people around them, and discovered in doing this that they had more freedom, which is the main purpose of my work ultimately, to help people find greater freedom to pursue the lives that they really want to pursue. Because once you start to think like a leader in all the different parts of your life, and when you think about the choices that you make, about the investment of your attention from the perspective of not only your own needs and desires and aspirations, but also from the point of view of others, as so many of you talked about in the opening question that Kelly so helpfully asked, you're serving others. Yes, but here's a method for how to actually practice doing that and get feedback on how well you're doing it and to get better at it. I originated this set of ideas 20 years ago, and I've been talking about it, writing about it, teaching about it, researching it forever. I feel like I'm just getting it. There's some inside juice. I'm a novice at this, even though I'm like the expert. More freedom to actually take moves that are good for you and good for them, because you feel less guilty and less anxious, because what you're doing is consciously intended to help other people and you move to a better tomorrow. Small steps, which I'm sure none of this is really very surprising to you once you think about it, but it when you experience it, it can awaken a new way of thinking and a new way of acting, and to see that, yeah, it's actually a good idea to think about yourself as a leader, not as someone who is a command and control, dictator, top down sort of, the traditional mythology or model of what leadership looks like, but as someone who inspires others to come with you to a better day. So those are some of the big surprises that we found.
Stu, I wanted to ask a question. I'm fired up. This sounds amazing. And,
Cool.
you know, what I know right now, I'm like, I'm buying the book, I'm going to do this, but I'm curious as a busy parent,
Yeah.
how much time does this take? And like, what are the tips that you might have about how to really like integrate this in your life?
Yeah.
Move through the process and exercises and, you know, actually get all this lovely experience.
Yeah, it's not easy. You know, it's a lot easier though when you're doing this with other people, because then you have mutual accountability, but you're also having more fun. You know, I emphasize fun in a big way, because, you know, it just makes everything possible to try to not to take yourself too seriously and to be helpful to other people. So if you could find even just one other person or one other, you know, two other people who be willing to, you know, just go through it together. And there's at the totalleadership.org site or the parentswholead.net page, which is a part of the Total Leadership site. So parentswholead.net is the page, and there's a discussion guide there for, you know, book groups if you want to hear some things to take you through it. But now that we know each other, you can just contact me and I can give you further tips. But that's the main thing: find other people, and you don't have to do everything in it. But my experience is that if you're doing it with other people and you get started, it starts to, you see results like fast, because just stepping back and taking some time to think about what's important and to develop a shared vision. We had a number of people in the lab originally when we did that, who after they did that exercise, they just quit. Like after they had committed, we had committed like big time and resources for them to go through this. Like, you know, it was a selection process, and they just freaking quit. I'm like, you can't do that, Adam. I said, no, we got all that we need. We're done. And because they developed this vision, and then they realized immediately, we should do this now. We should do this vision, but for 15 years from now, we should do this now. And of course, one of the purposes of developing a leadership vision is to direct your action and to inspire you to focus on the things that matter and to cut the stuff that doesn't matter. And they just did that. So, but you know, that first piece, which is the most important part, you know, what do you stand for? Where are you going? Which seems like so simple, but it's actually really hard because it takes a lot of courage to do that. You have to sort through all the messages that you've internalized from your parents and society and your friends and your own experience. And that's the hardest part. So just starting with some other people is my best advice. But if you want to, you know, write to me, I'm easily found. Happy to chat.
I have a comment. I love how it's really a guide. What I hear you talking about is a guide to learn how to have more intentional conversations with oneself and with others. And just how powerful that is, because we can hang out with our friends and we can have good conversations, but it's not the kind of conversations that you're talking about, which are so foundational with what's important to us, why we do what we do.
I know.
And I feel like, religion sort of used to be that for people in some ways, and we don't have that anymore, or some people do, but I don't.
Will, who is still here, referred to Jack Kornfield and a curious rabbi.
Right.
I've heard that before, and I'm actually, it's not surprising, and it's kind of intentional. What I see is this approach as kind of speaking to as a kind of secular, application of some of the ancient wisdom of most of the world's extant religions, the ones that are still around. So yeah, there's a way in which none of this is new. It's just the language is different. And I can tell you that the framing of the work-life integration challenge, how you live as a whole person with some harmony and help others to do the same, to frame that as a leadership challenge and to call it total leadership, and that the mission and purpose is to improve performance and results in all the different parts of life, starting with work and home and community and yourself personally. That, when we developed that, in 1999, was designed to bring men into the conversation.
Right.
That was my subversive mission. And it worked, because those are all terms that speak to, the dominant ideology of our society in the business world. Now, it's different now. It's totally different now. And I've studied, generational differences. One of the benefits of being this old is that, I have a lot of anecdotal evidence of how things have changed over the decades, but I've also actually studied it. And clearly young men, the generation or two after me, that feel, for the most part, very differently than my generation, and certainly the one before me. But yes, the conversations to build trust and gain a greater sense of the reality that you're navigating every day, those are at the heart of it. The hardest part, it's the hardest part, it's the scariest part. Most people in our program, when they've done the vision and values, they've talked about their life histories and how the critical episodes in their histories have shaped their values, and that's inspiring, and they feel more close to who they actually are. They've written a vision of the future that inspires them. They've learned from their classmates or others in their organization. They have a better sense of what they stand for, and a greater sense of purpose. That's all good. And then we get to, okay, now we're going to talk about the real people in your life, why they matter to you and what they expect of you and you of them. And you're going to talk to them about that. And most people are then like, oh shit, do I actually have to do this? Oh, sorry, Eve's daughter.
Okay.
I said a word that might offend you. And a number of people then become, like, do I really have to do this? And of course, you don't have to do anything. It's all volunteer, etc. But what almost always happens is at the end of that month of those conversations, where of course you're getting a lot of help, you're skilling up in your capacity to have real conversations. They feel so much better, because less stress, less pressure, because they realize that other people want them to be successful and for their own sake, but also because of the love and support that they feel for them. But they also feel more confident because they have that support and also have a better, more realistic picture of what they ought to be, investing their attention in. So yes. And it's the kind of thing, I like to think of leadership as sort of a performing art, like sports or music. And if you're a musician or an athlete, it's continual, it's lifelong. You can never be too good a piano player, right? Same thing. It's just practice. And this is what the religions of the world have us do every day, right? Just practicing all the time. But yeah, so I wouldn't call this a spiritual practice, but it kind of is. Snuck that in there. All right. Thank you for that, Eve. I hope this helps you with conversations you're having. All right, people are checking out. It's getting late. What is insider baseball? I have no idea what that means. Oh, an insider baseball question. Go ahead, Kelly. I'll stick around if you have to go. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone. I know this has been amazing. People have just been texting me and sending me private messages about how much they're learning, Stu, and how.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
My insider baseball question is, like, how much do you guys at Penn like hang out and talk about this? Like there's so many comedians like you and Adam Grant and Angela Duckworth, and you all are doing this really interesting stuff. And then does Penn ever thank you? And just it's such a big deal what you do.
Well, I mean, Penn is thanking me right now because Barbara invited me here and I've been having so much fun with y'all. So that's how I get thanked. But seriously, it's all about the people, the connections that I've been able. I mean, almost 37 years as a faculty member here, you get to meet amazing people from all over the world, and there's nothing like that. That's the value. So yeah, we don't hang out much these days, but there's a lot of interaction among an amazing array of people. I fear for the future of education and the various ways in which it's being disrupted, but there's a lot of good things about university life that we can apply to other parts of life. And I feel extremely grateful to have had so many years of being able to connect. At the same time, it's a very entrepreneurial environment.
Yeah.
And each one of us is like, running our own small startup, or big startup if you're Adam Grant. He's an industry into himself. So, and we're all trying to make a difference. And, a lot of people think that they are the smartest, greatest people that ever lived. So there's that too. But I'm not going to elaborate further on that idea.
Yeah, I just had this quick, just as like kind of though follow up on it's so, I mean, I'm wondering how does it feel to also see how many other people have followed you? I mean, doing like this like work and life and this like integrating this and all
Yeah.
people have been influenced by you and then seeing them influence other people. Like, what is that like? And who else do you like who have obviously been influenced by your work? It's so cool how
So
long.
cool.
And I mean, that's amazing.
So many people, I try to spend time in all my classes talking about the people who, without whom I would not be here. I do a whole class session on building, social capital, which starts and ends with, how you help other people and express gratitude and pay it forward and all that. And we have an exercise that helps people to do that, which is a ton of fun, where everybody gives help to everybody else. It's something that both Adam Grant and I learned from the same great scholar at the University of Michigan named Wayne Baker. And that's one of the things that I didn't know getting into, higher education that I now know, and that is how valuable it is to be in the business every day of trying to help people to become more of who they want to become. It's extremely gratifying intrinsically, like in itself. And then to have people come back and, talk about how they've used what I've offered to them and the experiences we've had together and the ideas and tools that they've used to help them and people who matter to them, which, the older I get, the more I get of that. It's beyond, Kelly. When I was an undergrad up in Binghamton, in the early 70s, if you would have told me that, 50 years later, this is what I'd be doing right now, I would have like, are you kidding me? No, I was a complete wastrel. I never went to class. I was getting high and playing music all the time. That's all I did.
Yeah. Do you know all the citations to your work? Do you know all the citations to your work?
Oh, I haven't looked.
Have you ever looked at them?
Is that a lot? I don't even know. I mean, I don't pay attention to that stuff.
It's 3,500. Well, I mean, it's not like the number. I mean, although I'm blown away by that personally, but just like, wow,
Really?
who are the people who are using your work? Well, I mean, you must be really.
Well, again, that's something that I didn't know when I first got into this, how this was going to unfold. And, if it were not for my partner, I mean, my wife is also my business partner. She runs this company with me. She's also my research partner.
That's so cool.
none of this would have happened. And it was only because I fell in love with her at first sight and then could not get her out of my mind and had to pursue her wherever she wanted to go.
It's so cool.
That all this has happened. And, this is a good note to perhaps start to wind down on. When I met my son for the first time and realized, okay, that's a relationship that now means the entire world to me. So what am I going to do to try to make that relationship flourish? Those two choices, among others, and I try to tell this, especially my undergraduate students, I followed my heart.
Yeah.
And that's what's led to everything good.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of this whole approach. Like, what do you really care about? Who do you care about now? What are you going to do within your power to make all that puzzle, kind of fit somehow?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's never perfect, and there's all kinds of difficulties and disappointments, but that's the aspiration. And I think that is the heart of most of the world's religions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a philosopher, but that seems to me that's wisdom of the ages. And I'm very fortunate to have some piece of the current conversation about those questions.
Yeah. You could tell us as the last question, because I know that we are really interested in supporting all the writers and authors and thinkers that come to see us. Like, what
Yeah.
are things? What are the things that people can do to help propel your work? Even
I'm letting Heather back in. Well, go to totalleadership.org, find out about all the stuff that's there. I do a lot of talks in organizations. That's always fun. It's usually a little less digressive than this one was, but I was just following your lead, Kelly.
Oh, and everybody will say, and Lori has said how fascinating it is. But or I loved it. We really got to hear about so much of the history that has led to this. But what, maybe asked a different way, like, what do you think people don't do enough of for writers that they really admire, and are learning from? You're seeing some of this chat is just incredible. I mean, Lily just told us that your Coursera class, made this massive difference in how she lives and works.
Hey, Lily, you were in that was a crazy class. You're talking about the total leadership class?
Yeah.
Did you go the whole way through?
I did. One of my colleagues took it in person with you and said it was the best class he's ever taken in his entire life. So I found it on Coursera and wanted to take it. It was really great.
That was an insane enterprise. It was very early days of Coursera, 2014 or 2015.
I think earlier, like 20.
I am losing my voice. It's approaching 11 o'clock. I've been talking all day. I'm really glad you were in that. And Coursera really wasn't built at that time, certainly for the peer-to-peer interaction that we were wanting to do. So what was that like for you?
Well, I think all those concepts, at least at that time, it was so new to me. I was struggling between being a young mom and having a full-time demanding job. So that class really helped me make peace with it.
I'm thrilled to hear it. That's fantastic. So ways of supporting people like me, it's inviting me to speak to your group. That's and it's usually pretty easy to do that, especially in Zoom land. This is easy.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it's really been a boon to me. I hate to say that, but because it's just so much easier to bring people together in this way. It's not the same, obviously there's so many ways in which this is, thin. But our hearts and minds are here, even if our bodies are not, right? So if you can find
Yeah,
a way to
and
capture people's attention, you can do a lot. So, obviously buying books, sharing them with your friends, writing about them, corresponding with me about which, the questions, meanings, applications, and then helping me to, writing Amazon reviews. Good idea. Thank you, Katie. I'm not a good marketing guy. That's the thing.
Well, it's not good or bad. I mean, you obviously don't need to be because you have such a following, but it's just really cool. So many people have really found this
I'm so glad.
illuminating. Please join me, everybody, in thanking Stu so much. I cannot wait till we get this link out to so many people. Bravo. Yeah, bravo. And just our big gratitude.
Well, thank you, Kelly, for what you're doing with diaTribe. I think my father's would be very happy with how I spent this last hour or so. So thanks for inviting me. And Barbara, thanks for making it happen. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming.
Thank
I
you.
hope to hear from you.
Thank you,
so
Stu.
much for sharing and
Good
teaching.
seeing you again.
Thank you.
Here's the
so much.
CPS.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.